Hello, I wanted to discuss my commander decks and where I kind of see myself aligning as a Magic player. Of the 9 commander decks that I have, 6 of them include red, so I'm definitely a red mage at heart. The least used colors amongst my decks are black and green. I only have 2 decks featuring black and 2 decks featuring green. And one of them is a Golgari deck, my Marin of Clan Nel Toth, and I made that one specifically because green and black were both so underrepresented in all of my decks, so I just said, well, I'm just going to put all the green and black stuff in there, and it's just more of a deck-building challenge for me, because a graveyard deck like that is just so at odds with what I'm typically trying to do in Commander. But I thought a good way to sort of show where my preferences lie as far as card selection go would be to sort of make my own secret layer. If I was designing a secret layer drop for me, what would I put in it? And obviously not going to just say, well, I spent all the most expensive staples, because I don't want to do that. I want it to be a little more personal, something that might not make the cut. Although, as you see, a lot of these cards aren't necessarily cheap, so it's not going to be like one of those, you buy a $30 secret layer, but you get like $2 worth of value. It's not going to be that either. But to start out with, though, it is going to be like a 5-card secret layer, and as what comes as no surprise, it's chock full of red cards. In fact, all of these cards go in a red deck except for one, which is the first card I want to talk about here, one of my favorites. And if I were making a secret layer for myself, this would definitely be in it. That'd be Aven Mind Sensor to start with, which could sort of speak to one of my annoyances as a non-green, non-black player for the most part, is people tutoring for cards, tutoring for creatures with their green tutors or black tutors, as well as land ramp in the case of green, searching your deck for specific lands and putting them onto the battlefield. And I like how Aven Mind Sensor stops both of those things. I think Magic needs more effects like this. It's not an expensive effect, but it can really thwart people's game plan pretty quickly. You'll never know the joy of flashing in an Aven Mind Sensor in response to somebody cracking a fetch land. It is hilarious. So Aven Mind Sensor would definitely be on the list of cards I would put in there. It's just a very unassuming body. It's a 2/1 for 3 with flash and flying, but it's the stopping of tutoring. I think that effects like this just solve so many of the problems that people complain about when they talk about Magic Commander, or that the format is getting too fast. And I do like hate bears. I like creatures that force people to play fair. It slows the game down. And there's others, that a lot of different ones that fall into this category that make spells cost slightly more, but I like Aven Mind Sensor. It's a very unique effect, and I just tend to put it in every deck I'm playing that's running white. I just like the ability to shut off deck searching for other players, and I would love it if Magic had more effects like this, or more things that work as effective counters to tutor and to land ramp. So after Aven Mind Sensor, though, and that's only like a 50-cent card, so it's not exactly breaking the bank to get it, so people can pick that up. Another one that I loved when it came out is Professional Facebreaker. So this is from Streets of New Capenna, which is one of my favorite sets. I just love the world building. The draft environment was a mess, but it had a lot of standout cards, and this is one of my favorites. It's the whole package. You've got treasure token creation, but you also have a chance for card draw. Whenever one or more creatures you control the combination player, create a treasure token. Sacrifice a treasure, exile a top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. And it's a 2/3 with menace for 3. I just love it how it's useful at any stage of the game. You can play it on turn 3 and use the menace to help get in for damage and start creating treasure tokens and start playing your spells out early. But if you draw it in the late game, and when the treasure tokens aren't really that useful, assuming you have other means of making them in your deck, you can just plop it down and then immediately start sacrificing treasure tokens to exile cards to dig down deeper to find more things to play. So I think the card has a lot of utility. I try to put it in most red decks that I can. Anything that is even slightly creature-based or has a treasure focus, a treasure theme. So yeah, Professional Facebreaker, it makes the cuts for most red decks, and it's only like a $3 or $4 card. It was about $5 or $6 when Streets of New Capenna first came out, but it's lowered in price just a little bit. It's also already gotten a printing in a secret layer drop, which I think speaks to the demand of the card. The third card I have is one of the more recent ones here on the list, but it's also quickly become a fan favorite of mine, and that is Dragonhawk Fate's Tempest. Now, I don't have a deck built around this as a commander, but it slots into just about every one of my red decks for the most part. It's a legendary creature, bird, dragon, 5/5 for 5 with flying, and whenever it enters or attacks, so it's got the Sun Titan and Friends clause of triggering on entering or attacking, you exile the top X cards of your library. X is the number of creatures you control, power 4 or greater. You can play those cards until your next end step, and at the beginning of your next end step, then this Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. So you are getting value whether you play the cards or not, either in the form of damage or in the form of cards you're able to play and use. And so I love it. I love this in my Rakdos Lord of Riots deck because it wants to get out as many big creatures as possible. And so Dragonhawk is just a huge card advantage engine because you're just able to flood the board with bigger and bigger creatures, and every turn that they're able to stick around, you're able to get more and more of those creatures out there. So for me, Dragonhawk is just a super fun card. I love it. I try to run it wherever I can. And maybe someday I'll build a full-fledged deck around it, but I just love it in all my red decks, all my creature-based red decks. This other card jumped up quite a bit, but it's like Dragonhawk, which is around an $8 card now. Reckless Endeavor also goes for about $8, and this one was printed in the Dungeons and Dragons, and so it's one of the few cards in Magic that involves rolling dice, but not just any dice, D12s. And this one I love just because I keep a couple D12s on my desk, and then I'll occasionally just roll them just to see what I get, because it has you roll 2 D12s and choose one result. Reckless Endeavor deals damage equal to that result to each creature, and then you create a number of treasure tokens equal to the other result. And so this is a card that even when I'm not playing Magic, I'll just roll dice to see what I would have gotten if I were casting it. I'd look and say, ooh, there's a 6 and there's an 8. And then I just think in my head, well, and in cases like that, it doesn't necessarily make a difference between 6 or 8. I mean, unless there's like a 7 toughness creature or something, and then you might want to use it to deal more damage. But it's just so much fun to just roll 2 dice, see what the results are, and then just think in your head, well, what would I do in that situation? Would I choose to wipe the whole field and with a larger number and then make fewer treasures? And sometimes you'll get bad rolls like 1s and 2s, but those tend to be pretty rare. I like Reckless Endeavor because it can sometimes feel like it's just a free board wipe, basically. If you spend 7 mana to cast it, but then you get back 7 or 8 treasure tokens or more, and then you're up mana. So yeah, Reckless Endeavor is just a card that I think is so much fun. The fact that it uses dice means that you can sort of play with it or get the sensation of playing the card even when you're not playing Magic. And so that's one reason why I always keep a couple dice on hand, just so I can roll and see what I would get. But yeah, Reckless Endeavor, that's another about $8 card that I would reprint if I were putting in my own secret lair. And then the last one is Arena of Glory. Now, this one was from Modern Horizons 3, and when it came out, it was selling for like less than $3, like $2.50. And I was like, this is insane. This is like just about as good as Hall of the Bandit Lord. Now, I would say Hall of the Bandit Lord is one of those cards that was like $15-20. It was just so expensive, and even got a reprint in a secret lair, which I bought a couple of those up actually. And that one can go in any color deck. With red, it's a little more limited. You can't just put the Arena of Glory anywhere. But I knew at the time $2.50 $3 is too low for this card, and so I grabbed up as many of those as I could, and it's now like a $12 card. So this is another one that I don't think people realized how good it was, but when you compare it to something like Hall of the Bandit Lord, it's like this is doing something very similar. You're getting haste, and it's really not costing you much. It's not costing you any more mana at the time. It just, you exert the land, so you're not able to use it next turn. So when you pay a red and tap, you exert Arena of Glory to add 2 mana, and if that mana is spent on a creature spell, it gains haste until end of turn. And if you were able to play like 2 creatures and use one of the red mana for each of those, you could play 2 creatures that have haste, which I've used to great effect in my Rakdos Lord of Riots deck, because if you are reducing the cost to where you're only paying the colored pips, you can drop down 2 creatures, give them both haste, and yeah, it's such a good card. You cannot do that with Hall of the Bandit Lord. You cannot use it to give 2 creatures haste at the same time like you can with Arena of Glory. So that is what I would put in as my last pick. And so all those together, the Arena of Glory, Reckless Endeavor, Dragonhawk Fate's Tempest, Professional Facebreaker, and even Mind Sensor, those all come out to about $31, $32, give or take, in non-foil. And so I think that would make it a fair price for a secret lair, and you're getting a decent amount of high value cards. Now, it's probably too much value in there for what WotC would want to put as a secret lair, but I also didn't do anything over the top crazy, like put in Rhystic Study, put in Teferi's protection, and all that stuff. So I wanted to pick something that was a little more moderate, has a couple $8 cards, a $12 card, a $3, $4 card, and a card under $1. But these are all cards I play, most of them. I try to make it into all my red decks, and then even mine center in my white deck. But that really shows kind of where I am and the cards that really speak to me as a Magic player. And in the coming days and weeks, I'll definitely go into more in-depth look at my decks and the synergies there. But barring synergistic effects, if I'm looking to squeeze in cards just because they're pet cards, personal favorites, that's what these definitely are to me. So I try to make room for them whenever I can. But that's all I really have to talk about today. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll go more in depth on those commander decks at a later time. Bye.